Worry and anxiety is a normal part of being a human. It protects us and keeps us safe, and has been doing so from when we were cave people. Worry stops us from doing dangerous things like touching a hot stove or walking in front of traffic. The amygdala, or emotion centre of our brain, acts immediately when there's a threat and overrides all logic and thinking to react and protect. When I talk to children, I explain this process and think about worry not as scary, but as normal, with our goal to be the boss of our worries. When faced with real-life stresses, it's more difficult to manage this on our own, and we need to understand stress and anxiety for ourselves as well as our children. The stress of bushfires often lasts the whole bushfire season, with people having to plan and think about this danger before the season begins. We're more alert on fire danger days and on the lookout for extreme weather conditions, changing our plans and behaviours to accommodate what might happen. When living with stress for long periods of time, we're thinking about chronic stress. This can be cumulative and build up as the person does not have time to recover their thinking or physical reaction to the stress. Stress has both physical and psychological impacts. In children and adolescents, it's harder to recognise the symptoms of stress at times, as they've often not had the life experience to understand what's happening in their body or to communicate in a calm and effective way. Anxiety is a natural reaction to a stressful situation, such as the first day of school or an exam. Anxiety disorders, however, occur when the anxiety symptoms interrupt our daily life. Anxious symptoms can be physical, with our thinking, or emotional. Anxiety disorders in children and adolescents can include generalised anxiety disorder, where a child is worried about lots of everyday things all the time. Separation anxiety, when they're worried that something bad will happen to them or other people when they're not with them. This may result in a child not wanting to leave their parents and can be associated with difficulties in school attendance. Specific phobia. This is an extreme fear of a specific object or situation. Social anxiety, which is anxiety when in a social situation or when meeting new people. An obsessive compulsive disorder. This occurs when an anxious or obsessive thought is followed by a compulsive behaviour such as checking that things are safe. This behaviour is out of the child's control and can occur over and over, causing distress. So how do we know when a child is stressed or anxious? Your child might experience sleep problems. It is really common for children to have trouble getting to sleep when anxious. It's often the first time of the day when they're not distracted by schoolwork, friends, chores or screens. Their brain is then free to think about worries. This can cause upset and frustration. If your child is having trouble sleeping, have a bedtime plan. Incorporate a time to talk about things, including worries, during the day when you can provide your undivided attention and reassurance. Physical symptoms such as an upset tummy or headache are also common. Check any ongoing physical symptoms before assuming that they're worry-related to ensure that physical illness is not being missed. If there are no physical causes, it's important to help your child to manage their worries. Normalise the physical impact worries can have and reassure them there's nothing wrong. For children, physical symptoms such as a racing heart can feel really scary. Behaviour changes caused by upset emotions can occur more frequently. Children find it difficult to communicate their emotions and will often display them through behaviour. We have to ask what they're trying to tell us through their behaviour, as it may provide information that can be used to help them. Common behaviour displayed when worried can include angry outbursts, withdrawal, crying, lots of questions, or attention and concentration difficulties. Be curious about what might be going on. Notice that they're upset and ask if something is worrying about them. Don't talk about behaviour as bad, but rather as telling us that something's wrong. Therapy for anxiety often includes education of why we worry and what worry does to our body and our brain. This helps children to understand what is happening and ensures that they're not scared by the physical and psychological symptoms of worry. Teaching ways to calm our body down is also important. More and more schools are incorporating mindfulness activities and slow breathing into a curriculum. If children learn this at a young age, it is normal and not stupid or annoying. Learning how to slow our breathing slows our heart rate, which in turn calms some of the physical symptoms. While it sounds easy or simple, it's hard to incorporate into our lives. Parents should practice this with their children, and there is a variety of guided apps which teach these skills in very short time frames. When children and adolescents say that strategies aren't working, they're often using the wrong strategy at the wrong time. Taking deep breaths will not work when we're a 10 out of 10 with our emotions. Calming down strategies normally work when our emotions are quite mild, often between a 0 and a 4 out of 10. For emotions that are stronger than a 4 out of 10, we need to get them out physically. Healthy physical strategies might be jumping on a trampoline, riding a bike, going for a walk or having a shower. These are all better than yelling at their brother or throwing things around the room. Children may need to learn what is happening to their body to help them to understand what strategy to use when. It does take time and practice. Understanding what worry does to our thinking is important for children. Thoughts happen automatically, and often we're unaware of our thoughts. It's hard for adults to catch thoughts, so for children it's doubly hard, and they'll often say they have no thoughts. Understanding the connection between our thoughts, how we feel and how we behave is crucial, as we can then change our thoughts to be more helpful, which will in turn change how we feel and help us to cope better. A thought like, "This is just like last time," can be changed to, "This is just like last time, but we have a better plan in place and we're way more prepared," which will help a child to feel calmer. It's not magic thinking, as our brains will not believe this. It's changing our thinking using facts and evidence. At the end of the day, we teach these skills, put a plan in place and then slowly face the anxious situation. It is by facing our anxiety that we overcome it, but we can do this at our own pace with a plan in place. In situations like recovering from bushfires, it's not the exposure to the real event, but talking through what happened in small stages and associating this with calming down and coping. Another condition that can occur after living through bushfires is post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. It can occur when someone is exposed to an actual or perceived extreme threat. Not everyone exposed to a bushfire threat will develop PTSD. Most people experience initial distress and then recover. People who experience PTSD will experience re-experiencing of the event. For children, this could be in nightmares, but can also occur during the day, especially if triggered. Being prepared for triggers helps children to understand that they may have a reaction, and then decreases the fear that can occur when a child is re-experiencing a traumatic event. They could avoid going places. They may experience changes in mood and thinking. Children will lose interest in what they were once did. They may withdraw from the family or have outbursts of emotion which can be misunderstood as difficult behaviour. Changes to academic performance or withdrawing from friends can also occur. There could be increased arousal, which can result in sleep problems, poor concentration and attention, and being on the lookout for danger. Children can experience attention and concentration difficulties, seeming to forget things or not follow through with instructions. They may have more difficulty getting to sleep, which can cause upset at bedtime. Sleep deprivation also makes it difficult for children to cope with day-to-day activities and often results in more upset during the day. It is important to understand these symptoms, as seeking help for PTSD early is important in recovery. Things to look out for include significant changes to sleep and eating, jumpiness or being on the lookout for danger, nightmares, changes in behaviour, including an increase in behavioural problems or withdrawing from family and friends, loss of joy in things they used to enjoy, changes in academic performance, and forgetting things. When we think about PTSD, we think about how extreme these symptoms are in the child or young person's life and the length of time they've existed following a traumatic event. PTSD is a condition that is important to seek professional help in recovering. If you are concerned about PTSD for your child, take your child to the GP to understand if they may be experiencing it and seek guidance from there. If you're worried about stress or anxiety for your child, it's important to monitor how they're coping and compare it with previous behaviour. Put strategies in place at home, and if there's no change in how your child's coping, think about seeking help. If your child is experiencing difficulties at home and school, it's also an indicator that it may be a good time to talk to someone outside the family home. If you're worried about your child and how they're coping, you can attend an appointment and seek an opinion. Don't ever feel silly or minimise your child's situation. If it's important enough for a family to take time out to see a psychologist or therapist, then it's important enough for some external help and assistance. The goal for a psychologist or therapist is to provide therapy and support so that children and families can have the skills and strategies to manage stress and worries without needing to see people ongoing. The first step could be to speak with your GP. They will check physical health and have access to referral options for you to consider. See a psychologist or therapist if recommended. If you or your child doesn't click with the first person, try someone else. Children, like adults, don't always click with every person every time. If you ever have immediate concerns about your child's safety and coping, you can attend accident emergency at your local hospital with your child. Your child will receive appropriate support, and if they're already engaged in therapy, this will be passed on to the therapist for ongoing work.